thinking about retirement right. I bet a lot of our listeners are, and maybe thinking beyond the typical stocks and bonds too.
Yeah.
Gold often comes up. It's shiny, it's that stable asset, historically at least,
Right.
and can seem like, well, a safe bet in uncertain times.
Yeah.
But before you picture your golden years, backed by actual gold bars, there's something really crucial we need to dive into.
Fees.
The fees.
Yes.
Involved in a Gold IRA.
Uh-huh.
And you share some great sources on this, and it turns out understanding these costs is absolutely key to making a smart decision.
Absolutely. Gold IRAs are kind of a specialized thing.
Yeah.
Like any specialized investment, it's going to have its own, well, kind of quirks and rules, and importantly, costs.
Right.
So, we have all this great material here that breaks down these expenses. And, well, our goal today is to make sure that you're not caught off guard by anything.
Exactly.
We'll give you the insider look at what it really takes to hold physical gold in a retirement account.
So our mission today is to really demystify these fees.
Yeah.
We're going to start with the common ones you're definitely going to see. Then we'll get into the less obvious and sometimes even hidden costs that can really add up.
Oh, yeah.
And then, crucially, we'll explore some practical ways you can potentially keep these expenses down.
Okay.
So by the end of this deep dive, you should have a much clearer picture of whether a Gold IRA with all its associated fees aligns with your own personal financial strategy.
All right. Sounds good. Let's get into it. What are the fundamental costs, the things you should just expect right off the bat when you're setting up a Gold IRA?
Okay, the first hurdle is the setup fee.
Yeah.
This is essentially the price of admission, what it costs to open the account.
Right.
From what we've gathered, you're typically looking at somewhere between $50 and $100.
Okay.
It's a one-time charge to get the ball rolling with your chosen Gold IRA provider and custodian.
Now, what's interesting about this is that it's not a fixed cost across the board.
Yeah.
Different companies will have different rates, different promotions. You might even find that they waive the fee entirely. So doing a little research could save you money right off the bat.
Good point. So once you're past that initial setup, then you're going to encounter annual maintenance fees.
Yeah.
Think of this as just the cost of keeping your account active, being managed, kind of like the administrative overhead.
Mm-hmm.
And our sources indicate kind of a general range of $75 to $250 per year.
And that's going to vary, too, depending on, well, the size of your Gold IRA
Yeah.
and the fee structure of the company that's holding your assets.
Mm-hmm.
So again, really stresses the need to compare not just what are the main features, but also what are these recurring costs. Because over the long term, even a small difference in your annual fees can really add up.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, and this is a big one because we're talking about physical gold. There are storage fees. You can't just keep gold bars under your mattress, not in an IRA. It has to be held in an approved depository, and that secure storage comes with an annual cost. We're seeing figures ranging from $100 to $300 a year.
Yeah, and that makes sense, right? I mean, we're talking about a physical asset here.
Yeah.
So that cost, it's going to vary too, depending on how much gold you're storing and the security level of the facility. And you might even see options for things like segregated storage,
Interesting.
where your specific holdings are kept separate.
Okay.
Now that can, well, it offers more peace of mind, but often it comes at a premium.
Sure.
So it raises the question, doesn't it? Is that extra layer of security worth the additional cost for you?
It's definitely something to weigh. Then we have transaction fees. These kick in whenever you buy or sell gold within your IRA.
Mm-hmm.
And our sources suggest that these are typically around 1% to 2% of the transaction value.
And that's where I think it's really important to be mindful of your investment strategy. If you think you're going to be actively trading within your Gold IRA, those 1% to 2% fees, those can add up.
Yeah.
And it can really make a difference. So it's not only about finding a provider with competitive transaction fees, but also thinking, is a buy and hold strategy more cost effective in the long run?
Okay, so those are the main fees, the more obvious ones, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But our sources also point to some additional costs that might not be immediately apparent.
Right.
What are some of those less obvious, even hidden expenses that we should be looking out for?
Well, you might see things like wire transfer fees.
Okay.
So if you need to move funds in or out of your Gold IRA electronically, that can cost you, maybe $25 to $50 per transfer. And similarly, when you take distributions from your IRA, there could be distribution fees, $25 to $100 per withdrawal.
It's those smaller transactional fees, I think, that sometimes get overlooked.
Yeah.
but definitely can chip away. Makes you wonder if consolidating transactions or planning them very strategically could save you some money.
Absolutely. And there are others, like late payment fees, for example.
Hmm.
If you miss a deadline paying your custodial fees or storage fees, you could get hit with a penalty. Just another reminder that even with alternative investments, the details matter.
And then there are partial distribution fees. So if you decide to withdraw only part of your holdings instead of liquidating the whole account, some providers might charge a fee for that, maybe $25 to $50 per partial withdrawal.
Right. So, all these less common fees really highlight the importance of thoroughly reviewing that fee schedule, really going through it and asking clarifying questions before you choose that provider. You want to understand every potential cost.
Okay, so we have a good handle on what these fees are. Now for the big question, what can you actually do to keep these costs down?
Well, as we said before, comparison is key. Do your research. Compare the fees across different Gold IRA companies. How much is the setup, the maintenance, the storage costs, the transaction fees? Don't just go with the first one you see. A little due diligence can go a long way.
So put in the time up front. Are there any other strategies that we can use to minimize these expenses?
Well, one of the articles you shared mentioned low-cost index funds, and in general, that's good advice for investing.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about a physical Gold IRA, that's a little different, right?
Right.
Because you're dealing with the costs of holding and storing this physical asset. There's not going to be a low-cost index fund for gold bars.
Makes sense.
But the idea of seeking out the most cost-effective provider, that still holds true.
Yeah.
Look for competitive fees, ask about any discounts or promotions they might have.
So find those efficient and transparent providers, specifically in the Gold IRA niche.
Exactly.
What about getting professional financial advice?
Yeah, that can be really helpful. A financial advisor who knows about Gold IRAs can really guide you through the process, help you compare different providers, and more importantly, help you decide, is this even right for you?
Right.
Because there are higher fees with a Gold IRA compared to traditional IRAs. So you want to make sure it aligns with your overall goals and your risk tolerance.
Now, to be fair and present a well-rounded view, we should touch on the pros and cons of a Gold IRA, which our sources briefly discussed.
Sure.
Can we highlight those for the listeners?
Okay. So on the plus side, a Gold IRA can be a good hedge against inflation. Gold has historically done well in times of uncertainty
Right.
and can offer the potential for long-term growth. And it's a way to diversify your portfolio, right?
Okay. And what are the main drawbacks to keep in mind?
Well, like we've been talking about, fees.
Right.
Higher fees compared to traditional IRAs. That's mainly because you have to store and insure this physical gold.
And just to reiterate, how do those Gold IRA fees generally compare to what you'd expect with a standard IRA?
You should expect to pay more.
Okay,
It's just the nature of having to deal with the physical storage and insurance. It's a big factor to consider.
for sure. So if someone does decide to go for a Gold IRA, what are some best practices for managing these fees, once the account is open?
Well, make sure you regularly review your whole portfolio, see how your gold is doing, and also stay informed about any changes to your provider's fees. Companies can adjust those, and you need to be in the loop.
So stay vigilant. Good advice. We've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we have.
So let's address some key questions that listeners might have. What's that typical range for those setup fees again?
$50 to $100. And again, always ask about promotions.
Okay. And the sneakier, less obvious fees, the ones to watch out for.
Wire transfers, late payment fees, and those partial distribution fees if you only want to take out some of your gold later on.
Okay. For someone who wants to keep those transaction fees down, what are the best strategies?
Look for providers with competitive rates. Don't trade too often.
Right.
And you can always try negotiating the fees, especially when you're setting up the account.
Okay, last question. This is an important one. Can you move an existing IRA into a Gold IRA without getting slammed with all these extra fees?
Yes, usually. You can transfer funds from a traditional IRA or a 401k into a Gold IRA through what's called a direct rollover or a trustee-to-trustee transfer. And if you do it right, you can avoid those taxes and penalties. It's best to work closely with your current and your new custodian, though, just to make sure it's done correctly.
So it seems like the big takeaway here is that while gold can be an attractive part of your retirement portfolio, understanding and managing the fees of a Gold IRA, that's crucial.
Yeah, you really have to weigh those potential benefits against the actual costs.
Right.
If you're proactive and you understand the fees involved, you can make the best choice for your future.
So for you listening, if you're intrigued by a Gold IRA, Start comparing those fee structures. Look at those setup costs, maintenance charges, storage fees, transaction fees. Go in with your eyes wide open.
And remember, retirement planning, wealth diversification, it's a journey, and there's always something new to explore, more to learn.
That's right. Keep learning, stay informed, and keep building that brighter future.
Exactly.
We'll see you at our next deep dive.
See you then.